Hello kids, welcome to another storytelling time with Ndaya. Today, I would continue with telling us about Solara. Tales of the Sun, Chapter 2, The Fire Beneath the Horizon. The sun had barely begun its descent into the distant west, painting the sky with streaks of amber and gold, when Solara's journey took an unexpected turn. The wind had shifted from the north, carrying with it the scent of something familiar yet distant: ashes, burned wood, and something much darker. Her long, golden hair fluttered behind her as she rode through the vast plains of Viteria, a land that, though once filled with endless fields of wheat and violet lavender, had begun to show signs of a more ominous fate. Solara, the flame-bearer, had been traveling alone since the great ceremony at the Citadel of Light. Her mission was simple: to find the eternal ember, a flame said to be capable of restoring balance to the world's dying sun. The elders had warned her that the journey would be fraught with peril, but Solara knew the risks all too well. She had seen the flickering shadows of the sun's waning light, felt the growing chill that spread like a creeping fog across the world. If she failed, the land would be swallowed by darkness, and the stars would be the last to remain. But Solara, as the chosen one, had never been one to shy away from the task ahead. Her resolve was as unyielding as the flame she carried within her, and her heart burned with the same intensity as the sun itself. The plain stretched on for miles, with only the occasional windmill or cluster of stone ruins dotting the landscape. As Solara rode her horse, Ashen, she noticed the change in the air, an unsettling stillness that seemed to hang in the atmosphere like a heavy fog. It was the calm before a storm, but the storm was not one of rain or wind. It was the storm of fire. In the distance, a thick plume of smoke rose into the sky, dark and ominous. Solara's instincts told her to head toward it. As a child, her elders had taught her that fire could both create and destroy, just as the sun could give life or scorch it beyond recognition. The fire could either lead her to her goal or prove to be an obstacle she had not anticipated. As she approached the source of the smoke, she began to see the outlines of figures, humanoid forms, but twisted and unnatural. They were draped in tattered robes, their bodies moving in erratic patterns, as if caught between madness and a trance. Their faces were obscured by hoods, but their eyes glowed with a faint red hue, reminiscent of embers in the dark. The fire was not of nature, but something conjured from within the very earth itself. A fire that didn't burn, but consumed everything in its path. Who are they? Solara muttered under her breath, drawing her blade, Solstice, a weapon forged in the heart of the sun itself. She rode forward cautiously, keeping her distance. The figures did not seem to notice her at first, engrossed in their strange, unholy ritual. Their chants were low, almost inaudible over the roar of the fire, but Solara could feel the weight of their words on her chest. They were invoking something ancient, something that should never have been awakened. As Solara closed in, the figures finally took notice of her presence. One of them turned, its glowing eyes fixing on her with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. It raised a hand, and the fire, as if responding to its will, surged forward, moving with a life of its own. Without warning, Solara spurred Ashen into motion. The horse bolted forward, narrowly avoiding the first wave of flames. She could feel the heat against her skin, the crackling of the fire as it danced toward her. But she was no stranger to fire, she was the flame-bearer. Fire was both her ally and her adversary. She raised Solstice high, and with a single swing, she cleaved through the wave of fire, dispersing it like a gust of wind scattering embers. The figures shrieked in unison, their chant growing louder, more frantic. They began to circle around her, their hands outstretched, weaving an invisible web of power. Solara's heart raced, but she stood her ground. The flame within her surged to meet theirs. "Stop," she commanded, her voice booming with the authority of the sun itself. The figures faltered, momentarily hesitating. But then, from the center of their circle, a figure emerged, a tall, gaunt being cloaked in black. Its face was pale, almost sickly, with eyes that burned like twin suns. Its presence was overwhelming, its power undeniable. "You are far from home, flame-bearer," the figure said, its voice a rasping whisper that seemed to carry the weight of centuries. "This place is not for the likes of you. You seek the eternal ember, but it is already ours." Solara narrowed her eyes, understanding at last. These were not mere worshippers of fire, they were followers of the fallen sun, a dark cult that had long sought to extinguish the light of the true sun and bring about an age of endless twilight. "If you think you can control the eternal ember, you are mistaken," Solara replied, her grip tightening on the hilt of solstice. "The light of the sun cannot be extinguished by the likes of you." The fallen sun cultist laughed, a sound like the crackling of a dying flame. "We do not wish to extinguish it, flame-bearer. We wish to shape it into something greater." With a swift motion, the cultist raised a staff, and from it, a massive wave of dark fire surged toward Solara, twisting in the air like a serpent seeking its prey. Solara's instincts kicked in. She leaped from Ashen's back, soaring through the air with a fluidity born of the sun's own grace. As she descended, she summoned the power within her, channeling the pure energy of the sun's light through solstice. The blade erupted in a burst of golden flame, clashing against the dark fire, sending shockwaves through the air. The two forces collided with a deafening roar, the ground beneath them cracking and splintering from the intensity of their clash. For a moment, everything seemed to stand still, the flames, the wind, the very air itself. Then, with a final, deafening scream, the dark fire was banished, dissipating into nothingness. The fallen sun cultist staggered back, its strength faltering. "You cannot defeat us," it hissed, but Solara could see the fear in its eyes. The power of the sun had once again triumphed. With the last of her energy, Solara struck, her blade cutting through the cultist's defenses like a ray of light through the darkness. The figure crumbled to the ground, the dark fire vanishing with it. Solara stood, breathing heavily, surveying the remains of the battle. The cultists had scattered, their ritual broken, but the fire still raged. It had not been extinguished, instead, it had turned into something far more dangerous, wild and untamed. Her mission had only just begun. As Solara gazed toward the horizon, she felt the pull of the eternal ember growing stronger. The fire beneath the horizon was not just a threat, it was a beacon, calling her forward. And she would answer. The end. Watch out for Tales of the Sun, Chapter 3, and don't forget to subscribe, like and share. Goodbye till next week Sunday.